So here we are. Well, let's pick off the game first and foremost, because that was a heck of a game. And, I want to say that the right team won from the standpoint that Florida State was the better team, but we're definitely challenged. And just your overall thoughts before we start to break down the specifics.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Look, I've been in here. I've picked games all year. Been pretty close. Been right about a lot of them. Kind of some surprising outcomes. I picked this to blow them out, and I picked like 15-17. But that did not happen. Like you said, it ended up being one of those classic Florida State-Miami battles. I think this makes the 19th, game within 8 points out of the last, 20, 25 games with Miami. So it's no surprise there. I think the biggest, just if you stand back and look at the game as a whole, I think Miami could have attacked this two different ways. They could have came in there and put it all on the line and really tried to compete and beat Florida State, or they could come in there and limit the bleeding, play not to get just absolutely destroyed like what happened last year, which you can't blame them. I think that's kind of what they did. They put the young kid in there, don't turn the ball over. But we stacked the box. They pretty much just weren't going to test that. They weren't going to throw it deep much. They really, let the game come to the young kid. And to his credit, man, he's a kid from my hometown, Emory Williams, true freshman thrown in a spot. He played a tough, gutsy performance, and he did just that. He kept them in the game and made enough plays to where it kind of came down to the fourth quarter. We go for an onside kick, miss it. You have that touchdown that's kind of a fluke. I'm sure we'll talk about more later, like you said, once we get into the specifics. But at the end of the day, these rivalries, you just can't count on going down there and blowing folks out, and you end up with a tough game. I thought it would be more maybe close in the first half and FSU go away with it in the second half. But thanks to that one touchdown there on the sideline, that just, didn't happen. And they had a chance to go down and tie it. But at the end of the day, no matter what narratives you see spun on Twitter about freshmen starting and wide receiver stat lines, Florida State got the victory. Moves to 10-0, undefeated in ACC play. And like you said, you got a little scrimmage here coming up this weekend, and then you get ready for the Gators and most likely Louisville in the ACC title.
All right. We keep it rolling. We got Big Game James stopping by. James, what's going on tonight?
Not much, man. Just trying to stay dry.
Man, nasty week so far. Yeah.
Nasty week, huh?
Yeah.
Weather down here is rough on us.
Out of rain.
Uh-oh. You guys are going to make me reconsider going down there. All right. But then the snowfall is going to, you can't get away from bad weather totally. So it's just no way around it. But James, we were just going to start to dissect the Miami game. So what are your overall impressions from what was obviously a close game, but I don't know that anyone can argue that the better team, and I'm not even talking about knowing what the records are going into this game, but just watching this game, that the better team won, although a really good ball game.
I think it was a good physical game. There was really, if you watched it, and again, especially upon rewatch, it wasn't as close, anywhere near as close as what the score indicated. But Miami did some really good things that you would do to when you're going up against a team where you're outmanned and you're outmatched. You really try to slow the pace of the game down. You try to murk it up and just try to, prevent the other team from really getting opportunities and shots. There wasn't a lot of offensive drives. Time of possession, I believe, if I remember correctly, Miami had that. Their defense made plays, and I think I said it on when I was talking with Cam, when we were talking to Cam, and I said it in my observations that Miami is the worst team I've ever seen in my life, and that came through. Like you would see where FSU was starting to establish things, and then all of a sudden, somebody just really blows a play. And it just really looks bad. And it looks like Miami was just doing something. And I give them props. I'm going to be honest with you. I pray that when Brian Kelly reevaluates his defense this year, that the first person that he goes after is Guidry from Miami. I would really like to not see that guy. he has gotten the most out of that defensive front that he got. I would say if I'm a Miami fan, if I'm a Miami fan, I'm mad at my offensive coordinator and my head coach because they coached a game where they felt they didn't have a chance to win. They didn't feel they had the bullets to be able to go toe-to-toe with us. So they coached an offensive game where they didn't attack down the field often. The quarterback wasn't as accurate, and they were just hoping that the running game could get going. And I believe that if they took more shots, like the big pass that they had in the second half, if they took more shots, that would have given them opportunity. And this is why I say it, Mark. Outside of that big play, Miami's offense got past the 50 one time. And that was because Florida State started the game off with an onside kick. That means you took absolutely no shots in the second half. That means you had absolutely no faith in your team. And this isn't me just trolling. This is what happened. And I, as a guy who really likes the rivalry and likes everything, why are we calling this a rivalry? Why are we playing this game if we're playing fearful? And it just get rid of all the pomp and circumstance, all the bravado if you're not going to try. And I'm mad at Florida State for not executing. Because if Florida State would have executed, it could have been another 45-3 game. But I think that Miami played to not get beat 45-3 and to get beat by as few scores as they can. And that's why I'll start calling them moral gables. Because it's moral victory you. That was a moral victory that if they felt that they had a better chance, they would have took some shots. Now they might have got blown out, but that was my whole take on it. Just 10 for 30 in the passing game. The quarterback, the young man Emory Williams, is 8 for 24 for 175 yards. If you take away the 80-yard play, he was 7 for 23. Excuse me, it was 8 for 23. It'll be 7 for 22 for 95 yards if you take away the one play. And in no earth is that a good offensive day. Like no planet, no alternative universe do we believe that. So like when they're saying that the referees, like I'm like, come on, guys. That at a certain point, we have to really argue football or we're not talking about anything.
Chris, we're diving into this one. What are your overall impressions of Florida State's performance?
They did what they needed to do to win. I mean, Miami came to play as far as the team goes. Unfortunately, their coaching staff, as James was saying, they played not to lose instead of playing to win. They've got a very conservative coaching staff when it comes to the offense. They don't trust their players, but they let their defense do what it's supposed to. If you watch the sideline and you look at Guidry versus the other two, you've got a coach with passion. You've got a coach that's got fire to him. You've got a coach that trusts his guys, puts them on an island if it needs to happen. And you get more out of your players when you trust what they are. Florida State did what was needed. We had 5 drops in that game. You don't have 3 of those, or you don't have 2 of those. The game changes as far as the score goes. 2 of them were for touchdowns. There was a hold that was on Keon Coleman when he went across the middle. They didn't call it. The guy completely grabbed him and turned him around. The ball went over his head. If he would not have grabbed him, that was a touchdown because there was nobody else behind it. But the refs, I won't sit here and say that the refs picked on Florida State because I believed at the time opposite of the new rule. I don't like the new rule for safety. I think that Miami got a safety in that play, but I also think we had an interception and a target that wasn't called either that completely changes the game. I'm impressed that Florida State finds ways to win. I'm less impressed with Florida State being able to play. At times we play down to our competition. We make mistakes when we don't need to. When we went and played LSU the first game of the season, we found out that this team could turn it up at any moment in LSU, so Florida State did so first. We've missed out on that a little bit this year. Since then, we just do enough to win football games. And I don't think that continues. I think once we play Florida, you see a little bit more of a separation there. You see Florida State operate offensively at a higher rate, less drops, things of that nature. and then you get ready for the ACC championship, and you continue to play that way.
So Clemson would be the last team that would have the kind of talent that could stand in the same field with Florida State, although this Miami roster is certainly a top 15 range roster. So is Florida State playing down to its competition, or is the team just not getting better?
Well, if the way that I look at it is the team make mistakes because they never fear that they're going to lose. The thing is Florida State doesn't have a consequence for messing up. It always works out for them this season. They don't have a consequence to the actions that take place when we drop a ball or turn it over, which we haven't turned over a lot. Jordan Travis has 2 interceptions for the entire season. So it's just at times which we've had this issue, and people still have to understand this about Florida State. While there's a lot of veterans on this team, there's a lot of veterans that have never played together till this season. These guys are still getting to know each other, whether we like it or not. Oh, but we're 11 games going into our 11th game. I don't know about everybody else, but playing 11 games together ain't a whole lot. Not when it comes down to the grand scheme of it. That's not a lot of games together. That's one season. But he did this at this school. He did that at that school. Yeah, they ran completely different schemes. And now you've got guys that have been coached to do this from 5 different schools. Now you're trying to retrain them to do what Coach Atkins wants them to do on offense, as far as the line goes. Then now your pulls and stuff that you were naturally doing last year with guys that were under that system for 2 or 3 years, they're gone. Robert Scott being one of your leaders and veterans for this team, he's been out for quite some time. So to me, it's just they're getting to know each other. It's not that they're not getting better. They just don't get consequences. They find ways to win when it's like we make the play at the absolute necessary time that we have to.